All right, guys. So I just finished watching the Westworld season 2 premiere, and as expected, there is a ton to unpack. So we'll just start with this because, well, actually, before we get to anything else, let me just say, I know some people don't like to watch the in the weeks ahead or next time on Westworld segment that they show after the credits. So for that reason, I'll probably watch it just because I don't mind doing that, but I know people don't watch it. So at the time of recording this, I haven't watched the post-credit in the weeks ahead segment. So if you are worried at all about spoilers, I've literally just seen the first episode. I haven't read any theories. I haven't watched the previews from next time. So I am at an exact base level of I literally couldn't spoil anything if I want to. I mean, granted, if I do very well with my predictions, it might seem like a spoiler, but I promise you, I've just seen the episode and that's it. So no worries there. Yeah, I guess we'll just start with sort of doing a plot breakdown. This is, again, just an instant reaction. Sunday night, I literally watched the show, came in here, recorded. So just so you know. So it starts off with Arnold. Actually, question right away. We see Arnold or maybe Bernard. We don't know who necessarily. Having a conversation with Dolores in their old spot. They're in the chairs facing each other. There's some questions there right away. First of all, we don't know, like I said, if it's Arnold or Bernard. We don't know if it's when this took place. Obviously, there's been trickery with timelines in the past season, so that's a question as well. And we also don't know who is leading the conversation. And I feel like that would depend on the timeline 100%. This could be a flashback to the conversations that Arnold and Dolores used to have. This could be present day where Dolores is sort of awake and we're kind of questioning whether Bernard is. She could be trying to have these conversations with Bernard, sort of a reversal of roles to try to get him to understand and become, self-conscious and everything as well. Or conscious. I don't think self-conscious is the right word. For him to become conscious and be aware of the fact that he is sort of a robot. Because we don't really know, the last we checked, Bernard got rolled back. I know there's some conversation that happened with Dolores. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. I'll run through the plot. So it opens with that conversation. Then there's a bunch of flash cuts of Bernard's experiences throughout season 1, and it immediately cuts to the aftermath of the gala attack. So Bernard sort of wakes up on a beach. No one knows he's a robot. They check his files. They find out that he is, of course, an employee of Westworld. So as far as we know, everyone around him doesn't know he's a robot. There's a whole military task force sort of set up base there on the beach. Seems like they're the ones that are dealing with the aftermath of this attack. Another key moment, you find out that Westworld is an island. I feel like there's some question as to where Westworld is. It's an island. And one would assume it's near China because I don't even know if they said this in the show, but if you have closed captions on, it says that the guy's speaking Chinese. So the Chinese sort of military is there. They're in camo and everything. And they get kind of sent away. But it seems like this is an island maybe off of mainland China. That's what it seems like. You also find out what's inside a robot's head. They end up scalping someone, pulling out this sort of spherical USB drive. It has video recording, which I guess that's not, too crazy given the technology in the show. It seems like they would. But they can sort of replay what the robot saw. I don't know how far back it goes, but you would think they kind of log everything. Then you get to see what Dolores is up to. She's sort of executing people. And by the way, she makes a point of saying this. She's not executing people as Wyatt. She's not acting as the rancher's daughter, but she's acting as herself. Even though a lot of it, and could be interesting. I don't know if this is coding or if it's just, cheesy writing on the, Westworld's part, like the actual show. I don't know what's going on, but she repeated a lot of the same sort of phrasing and lines that you saw in season 1, things that were said to her, things that are part of her programming, and she sort of flipped them around. But that, that could be an indication that she's still sort of going off her programming. Because as we said, I remember in last season, Maeve, she thought she was escaping. She thought she was hatching this whole plan, but then you realize that she's in fact not. She's programmed to escape. She's programmed to do all this. So do we really know for a fact that Dolores is conscious, or is she simply acting on the programming that Ford wrote for her? Do you know what I mean? This whole question of who's conscious, because they also allude to the fact that, Ford rewrote code so that they see everyone as host. And this is something that, Bernard just kind of mentioned. So I don't know if that's true or if it's a theory or whatever, but if that is true, I'm sure the line in the show wasn't written for no reason. What that means is that these robots are seeing everybody as hosts, so they're sort of acting like they did according to their programming, but now they basically just got rid of that one line of code that says you can't shoot humans. That's it. That doesn't necessarily mean they're not robots anymore. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're conscious. That's an interesting question, just because we're almost assuming, just like we were assuming they're robots before, and the sort of twist is that, they're not robots, they're conscious. Now, the twist is almost reversed, where it's like we're assuming they're conscious. We're assuming Dolores is acting on her own self-interest and essentially a human. But how do we know that her core programming hasn't just been rewritten to be this rebel, to be this escape? As you mentioned, even Ford in season 1, he even says this is his new narrative. He keeps referring to it as his new narrative. So is it really, maybe it is just a narrative. Maybe this is sort of programmed into them. That's definitely something to keep an eye on. But Dolores is executing people, and that seems to be her main objective right now. She's going around killing people, sort of spitting off all these lines about, hey, look what, you guys were asking for this, basically. And she's trying to make an example of these people. We get to see William again. William is still alive. He cleverly put a dead body over him, and apparently that worked. And he's suddenly playing the game for real. Now, this is sort of what he wanted the whole time. He wanted the stakes to be real. He reiterates this a couple times throughout the episode. I don't know if you guys ever played like Diablo. I'm sure there's other games that are like this too. But Diablo, you die and you go back to base or whatever. You start over. You go back to the town. When you switch on hardcore mode, you die and you're dead for good. And it's almost like that. Like, he's still in Westworld. He's still playing the game. But now the stakes are like, oh, these robots can kill me now. Like, it's stupid when the bullets don't, when the guys can't shoot back. So now it's real. It's always what he wanted. I don't know. He's still the lead character, but it seems like that's what's going on with him. We also find out that Lee is alive as well. He was almost killed by the cannibal storyline. In literally the same line delivered that he wrote for that cannibal. Almost eats him. Maeve saves him, uses him as a hostage to find her daughter. And, basically, it's where I think a lot of people saw Lee in the previews and were wondering how are they going to sort of bring him back. It makes sense, sort of. Like, he knows the park. He knows the characters within the park because he created a lot of them. So he will have some advantages as far as helping Maeve find the daughter. I also think Maeve just thinks that he's easily controllable. Like, she's just smarter than him, more equipped than him. She's going to be able to control him. So he's not really a threat, and he could be helpful. Maeve also meets back up with Hector, and the three of them are together sort of looking for Maeve's daughter. So that's going to be hilarious. That combo of three, it's already been pretty funny. I think it's going to continue to be funny. I particularly liked, there's a scene at the end of the episode where she has him change into like cowboy clothes, and she makes him strip down naked in front of her. And that's, a pretty direct parallel to season 1 when the hosts were almost inhuman. They talk a lot about the nudity in Westworld and how it's not sexual nudity. It's, like almost like this like vulnerable nudity. They're sitting naked in a chair. They're getting controlled by the programmers or the techs or whatever. And they're in a very vulnerable position. So to show that switch where now the robots are in control and the humans are the ones that are vulnerable, I thought that was a cool little nod to that. And we've also got Charlotte and Bernard. They escape the gala. They go to an underground lab that Bernard, seemingly didn't know about at all. Some pretty creepy stuff going on there. He questions, are we logging records of our guest experiences and their DNA? And she's like, I'm not getting into all that or whatever. But that's obviously dropped on purpose, because it seems like that's what they're doing. Now, we got hints of this in season 1, but then we got distracted by all the robot sort of uprising type stuff. But it seems like what's going on behind the scenes at Westworld is this woman, Charlotte, basically comes in. She's trying to take information from the host experience or DNA or whatever. She uploads it all into Dolores' dad. I forget his first name, but Abernathy. She uploads the information to him as a host. We saw this in season 1, and then the plan apparently, which gets revealed in this episode, is that they're going to ship that host out to Delos, who is waiting on a host to be delivered to the mainland, and not just a host, but an insurance policy is where they describe them. But it's basically just I don't know. We can debate what the deeper meaning of that is, but it basically is just this host that has all this information in it. They're going to send it out to Delos. Seems like they never received that package because the uprising sort of disrupted all of that. But that is sort of an interesting plot point in general, because it sort of mirrors what's going on in our world today. People are talking about Facebook and all these social media apps that are gathering information about us, and then these companies, these huge companies, have all this information. People sell information to other companies, whatever. We don't know what they're using that for, or what they're going to use that for in the future, because we can't predict the future. But what's going on with all this information that's being collected? Do you know what I mean? That's a real life problem. So in Westworld, it seems like they're also taking all this information. I don't know what sort of data they're exactly looking for or focusing on with the information coming from the host, but it seems like that's what the interest is. They said even that's it's not about some stupid theme park where people get to play cowboys and bandits and things like that. That's sort of the distraction. What they're actually doing is gathering information on the clients. I don't know what that's going to be used for. It could be a blackmail situation. It could be I don't know. I'm sure we'll figure that out as the season goes, or that actually might be a mystery that carries through the entire series. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to tackle that one, but it's definitely an interesting plot point. Back to that lab, we do learn two more sort of technologies that I think are brand new to the series. I haven't heard them discussed in season 1, to my recollection. So the two technologies we learn about are drone host. There's hosts down in this lab. I assume it's not the only lab or not the only place where this is used, but they're called drone hosts, and they're these offline hosts that even Bernard didn't know about. And he was the head of engineering. I know he's a robot, but that was his role, head of engineering, and he didn't even know about this lab or the fact that there's these offline drones down there. So that's a little sketchy. I don't know what the deal is with that necessarily. And then the host mesh network. So when he's trying to locate Abernathy, Peter, that's his name, Peter Abernathy. When he's trying to locate Peter Abernathy, he says that he can tap into the host mesh network. And this is something that Charlotte didn't even know about. Whether that's just a sort of literary device to have one character explain it to the other, but really they're explaining it to the audience. That could just be as simple as that, but who knows? But Charlotte didn't know about this host mesh network, which I guess makes sense because she's not that familiar with the technology, but he describes it basically as like a connected subconscious between all the hosts. So it's almost like ants in a colony that can communicate with each other. He uses it to find Peter Abernathy, but it seems like that could have a larger, more sweeping impact on the plot or whatever. The fact that all these hosts can kind of be tapped into to bounce from one to the other. It said like if you tap into a host location, they'll in turn respond to the host around them, who will in turn respond to the host around them, and you can sort of weave your way through the network of robots and basically find anyone. I don't know what the limits on that is. Can you also see through their eyes? Can you also tap into the data in their system? I don't know. We're yet to see exactly what that. So far, they use it to find a robot, but I don't know what else that host mesh network can be used for. But that's definitely an interesting piece of technology. I'm sure that's not the last time we'll hear about that, just because if for no other reason they took the time to explain it. But getting back to Bernard now, it seems like he is aware of the fact that he's a robot. We talked about whether how conscious he is, how self-aware he is. It seems like he does sort of he's just for lack of a better term, he has woken up, at least it would appear, because when Charlotte goes into the other room, he sort of taps into the system and does an analysis on himself and realizes that he's very close to critical failure himself. So obviously he's looking up, the robot stats on himself. He must be aware that he's a robot, and he extracts this fluid from one of the hosts that's kind of laying on the table and puts it into himself, and it heals himself. So he's self-diagnosing, self-healing, doing robot analysis on himself. So that shows sort of where he's at as far as his level of awareness of the situation. And finally, some cliffhangers, or I guess just hints as to things that are to come. They find a dead tiger on the banks, and it's clear this tiger did not come from Westworld. It came from a different park. Now, last season, we saw that there was S-World, and I think there's still some debate whether that was Samurai World or Shogun World or whatever, but it was clearly this ancient Japanese world with samurais in it, and geishas and that sort of thing. So there was a second park. The question was, are there two parks? Are there a bunch of parks? I don't know. But the tiger in this episode, they said the tiger came from Park 6. So there's at least 6 parks. That's something to keep an eye on. So it seems like this is a huge operation. They also mentioned that nothing's ever crossed borders from one park to the other. So that's interesting. And then immediately after that, they discover that there's all these hosts clustered in this one spot. So the team of Bernard and the SWAT people, who is led by this guy named Carl Strand, and Stubbs, the security guy from season 1, the team of all of them go to find this cluster of robots, find out that they're in, first of all, they're dead. They're dead, but they're also in a sea that no one knew about. There's all these dead hosts floating in this sea that people didn't even know was there. They even allude to the fact that there's no way Ford could have built this sea without anyone being aware of it. It's too large of a thing. So Bernard said he doesn't know where it came from. I don't know if he's telling the truth or lying. But Ford apparently couldn't have built this. I don't think they would have said that if the answer was, oh, yeah, he could. He did. So there must be some sort of weird mystery surrounding this sea. Why are all the hosts dead? Strand comes up to Bernard and he's like, I can only imagine what it must have been like being there the night of the gala. What happened to these people? What happened to all these hosts that are floating? And he said, I killed them. I killed all of them. So I don't know. It's a big cliffhanger. That's how the episode ends. So I don't know what the deal is with that at all. And by the way, I did not expect to be looking this up on a Sunday night, but just because it crossed my mind, it might have crossed yours as well. When they're walking through that sort of town center area where you have all the dead bodies, there's flies, there's maggots, it looks like they're deteriorated. I looked it up. just from a timetable things, like, you don't know how long it's been. We see Bernard and we see Charlotte in that underground lab, and she's saying that there's no rescue team coming, and then all of a sudden it seems like the rescue team is there. So we don't know if it's been weeks or days, and it looked like the body's really deteriorated. From what I looked up, which again, I have to clear my search history now. From what I looked up, it takes bodies about 10 minutes. If they're outside, it takes bodies about 10 minutes for the flies to sort of find them and lay eggs in the wounds or whatever. And then the maggots hatch 20 hours after that, approximately. So it is plausible that even though it looked like they had been there a while, it's plausible this is the next day or within 24 hours. So it's very possible that that's what's going on here. So just in case you had that question like I did, it seems like this is the next day when they're going through that town center, and it's not, there's no deceiving with the timelines there. I don't think anyway. So yeah, I guess that's where we stand. You have Maeve, Hector, and Lee going to search for Maeve's daughter. You have Dolores sort of running around with Teddy and Wyatt's crew, and she's executing people. They have a little conversation at the end of the episode, Dolores and Teddy, where they're talking. First of all, they're standing on that cliff that they were standing on in their narrative loop. They would constantly meet on the cliff and talk about the future or whatever. They were on that same cliff, or at least something that looked like that. So there's the parallel there with season 1. And they're having this conversation about the future. And Teddy seems conflicted because they've just been killing people. It's very clear that Teddy is not fully aware like Dolores is. It seems like they're on different levels of consciousness, but he kind of gets it, but she has to almost dumb it down and explain to him in terms that he can understand in his robot character brain or whatever. She has to explain what's going on, but she says these people look like us, but they're not like us, talking about the humans, and they need to pay for what they did basically, and how just conquering this world, aka Westworld, is not enough. They have to go into their world and conquer that one as well, aka the real world. So it seems like she has this plot where she's not just trying to take over Westworld. She's trying to escape Westworld and take over the actual world, or make humans pay for what they've done. And the robot versus human war has been teased for a while, and it seems like Dolores is leading it, which is expected, but she kind of spells this out for Teddy. So that'll be interesting to watch moving forward. And then Bernard is in two places at once because it's half flashback, half real time. And the difference is, it's not like last time we were talking about like 30 years or 45 years or whatever. The difference this time is literally just a day, but the whole episode follows him and Charlotte in the underground lab looking for Peter Abernathy. We get no updates on that. We don't know where that goes from there. That ends there. And then the next thing we know is Bernard's waking up on the beach. I don't know where Charlotte is, nowhere to be found. He's waking up on the beach. He's with the whole security detail team, and they're trying to figure out what happened. They stumble upon these bodies. That's where he left at. We don't know what happened between him being with Charlotte and him waking up at the beach. That's a gap of time, which is still a mystery. And then, present time, it seems like the newest thing out of everything going on concurrently with Maeve looking for her daughter and Dolores having that conversation with Teddy. We have Bernard at this mysterious sea with all these dead bodies saying he killed all these hosts. Or you assume they're hosts anyway. They're dressed in cowboy costumes. I just realized, I guess this could be humans as well. But who knows? But no, it's hosts, because they found a collection of hosts. So that's what they're trying to find. But we find out that he killed the host, and that's where everyone sort of stands. The last person, I talked about him a little bit at the beginning, but I waited till the end because it seems like this is going to be the driving force of the entire episode, is, of course, William. Like I said, he's playing the game for real now. The stakes are real. He could die. He's searching through, doing his thing where he's looking for, the game within the game or whatever. And it seems like he's finally found it. Because if you remember last year, he was following the maze. The name of the season was The Maze. He kept sort of following the maze. And all these robots were saying, the maze isn't for you. They kept saying, the maze isn't for you to William. And the reason was because it was not. The Maze was a game created by Arnold to have Dolores find her own voice and become conscious and sort of break out of the chains, so to speak, of Westworld. That was the Maze. So that wasn't, in fact, for William. But in this episode, he meets up with Robert Ford's, his younger version of himself from season 1. He recreated child Robert Ford, and that Robert Ford comes and finds William in this one. And it basically says, you were playing Arnold's game. The Maze was Arnold's game. The door is his game. And he has to find a way back out. He has to find the door. Actually, it's probably worth getting the wording correct here. I wrote this down. He says, in this game, you must find the way back out. In this game, you must find the door. Congratulations, William. This game is meant for you. He also adds a little extra hint. He says, the game begins where you end and ends where you began. Which, who knows what that means? Is it when he first decided he wanted to take a trip to Westworld? Does it begin, on that first trip with Dolores that we watched all of season 1? Are we talking about something else? Who knows? That's a mystery, but that's a little hint. I'm sure there'll be clarity on that as the season moves, but that'll do it. That's my instant reaction. I'm sorry if it was scattered. I feel like that's, almost on brand with, first of all, The Disorderly, but also the show Westworld. So I think I haven't quite decided. I mean, I'm definitely doing these Sunday nights, but I don't know if I'm going to do, instant recaps and then later on in the week, maybe a more detailed sort of summation of what's going on. I might actually do maybe just like a mid-season review and then a season recap at the end. We'll see. But if you subscribe to this podcast, you'll get it as soon as it comes. We're doing just Westworld until Westworld's over. So nothing else. I know it says the Disorderly Podcast. It's all Westworld till it's over. So if you were following Westworld with us, please tune in every week, download the episodes, tell a friend if you enjoyed my analysis or my take on any of this stuff, because that's how this thing grows and gets bigger. Check out thedisorderly.com for all your sports and entertainment needs. It's weird. I'm doing this. I'm also going to write my MLB post tomorrow, talking about baseball. So it's, it's trying to cover all my interests here, cover our bases. Obviously, people probably are going to pick or choose one or the other, depending on what you listen to, but what you enjoy watching and consuming. But yeah, for all you Westworld fans, I'm going to be doing this pretty nonstop, and I'm pretty up to date on things. I'm out there with a notepad. I almost want to take a picture of my notepad because it's wild, but we're gonna keep we're gonna keep doing that, and I'm gonna keep scribbling notes on my pad as I'm watching this like a crazy person. So yeah, please reward that with a subscription to the podcast. But that'll do it. We'll be back next week with our episode 2 recap. Thank you for watching along with us, and thank you for tuning into the podcast. I'll see you guys next week. Peace.